Well, it looks like they're making it official. Representative Mike Collins, just claimed in a post on X that he altered the name plaque outside of the office of Senator Chris Van Hollen, saying that he now represents El Salvador. It may as well be true, as Van Hollen traveled all the way to El Salvador on taxpayer dime just to meet with accused MS-13 member and illegal immigrant Kilmar Abrego Garcia. They deny that he's MS-13, but President Donald Trump shut down all of that when he showed Abrego Garcia's tattoos, proving that he is a member. He said it on Truth Social. This is the hand of the man that the Democrats feel should be brought back into the United States because he is such a fine and innocent person. He's got MS-13 tattooed on his knuckles, and two highly respected courts found that he was a member of MS-13, beat up his wife, etc. El Salvadorian President Nayib Bukele, who has been working with the President Trump's administration by accepting suspected gang members to the notorious Sikot mega prison, also mocked the Van Hollen visit on X, saying that Kilmar Abrego Garcia miraculously risen from the death camps and torture that Democrats seem to think that he was under, now sipping margaritas with Senator Van Hollen in the tropical paradise of El Salvador. So President Trump ripped Van Hollen as a joke, saying that he looked like a fool standing in El Salvador begging for attention from the fake news media, or anyone for that matter. But let me tell you guys, Democrats should take a good hard look at two very new polls before they follow Senator Chris Van Hollen straight off of a political cliff. Why? Well, according to a new CNBC survey, President Donald Trump has a net +7 approval on his policy of deporting illegal aliens. The president also has a net +12 approval rating on his handling of the southern border. Meanwhile, CNN cited a poll that found a whopping 56% of Americans support a mass deportation of illegal aliens. In 2016, that number stood nearly 20 points lower at 38%. And so now, thanks to Van Hollen's tone-deaf defense of a known gang member, President Trump's not just calling him out, but he's actually turning it into a national movement. So let's break down exactly what went down, who said what, and why this story is blowing up real fast. So stay right there, guys. You are not going to want to miss this. So first, here's Senator Van Hollen, who just can't seem to answer a simple enough question about Abrego Garcia's alleged MS-13 ties. Watch.
Trying to litigate on social media what they should be doing in the courts. They need to put up or shut up in the courts. Let me tell you, and I decided to write this down so I could be absolutely accurate as to what Federal District Court Judge Zinnes said about these allegations by the Trump administration. Quote, "No evidence linking Abrego Garcia to MS-13 or any terrorist activity has been presented to the court." That's where to litigate this. It's been litigated in many other places. So I'm not going to get into the details, because the whole purpose of our court system is for them to adjudicate these things, not for Donald Trump to go off on social media.
This is exactly why Congressman Mike Collins said that he went ahead and changed Van Hollen's office plaque for him. When he first announced his trip to El Salvador, Collins responded by saying, if they're going to advocate harder for illegal gang members than you do for American citizens, then don't come back. I mean, it makes sense, right? Democrats were all in an uproar saying that the El Salvadorian national was a hardworking Maryland resident whose right to due process was violated. But what they cover up is the very real fact that Abrego Garcia entered the U.S. illegally in 2011 and remained in the country unlawfully despite being issued a deportation order back in 2019. Prince George's County Police Gang Unit identified Abrego Garcia as a member of the notorious Mara Salvatrucha MS-13 gang in 2019, according to Homeland Security investigations. So the HSI report also noted that Abrego Garcia was suspected of trafficking after a Tennessee Highway Patrol trooper encountered him in December 2022 with 8 other individuals in the vehicle, but no luggage. Not to mention, the Department of Homeland Security also released a document showing that his wife, Jennifer Vasquez Sura, once sought a domestic violence restraining order against him in 2021. You ever get the feeling that Medicare system was built to confuse us? Well, I do. Between the government red tape, big pharma's influence, and insurance companies pushing overpriced plans, it's just a mess out there. That's why I'm glad I found Chapter. They're not selling anything. They're actually just helping people. Whether it's you, your parents, or someone you love, Chapter's team will sit down with you, review every single Medicare plan in your area, and help you figure out what makes the most sense. No more guesswork, no pressure, just real help. Julie in Kansas saved $400 a year. Jamie in Texas got back $600 in her Social Security checks. This is awesome. So these guys, they built Chapter because their own families were taken advantage of. And I think it's pretty clear that they don't want anyone else to go through that either. And the cool thing is, it's 100% free. It could save you a fortune. I'll leave a link for you guys in the description down below this video. You can give them a call on the phone, or you can hit them up on the web. Their website is askchapter.com/Ron. Just recently, President Donald Trump hosted Angel Mom Patty Morin, a Maryland resident, so a constituent of Van Hollen, at the White House. Morin's daughter was a victim of an illegal immigrant from El Salvador in 2023. Patty Morin claims Van Hollen never contacted her after Rachel's passing. So here's what little Van Hollen was able to say about that.
You know that there's been a lot of attention on two Maryland women who are angel moms, in the sense that no connection to Mr. Garcia at all, but in two separate cases involving people who were in the U.S. and in Maryland illegally, violently raped and killed their daughters. This is Patty Morin, the mother of Rachel Morin, one of your constituents.
And to have a senator from Maryland who didn't even acknowledge, or barely acknowledged, my daughter and the brutal death that she endured, leaving her 5 children without a mother and now a grandbaby without a grandmother, so that he can use my taxpayer money to fly to El Salvador to bring back someone that's not even an American citizen.
So a lot of questions there. First of all, who did pay for this trip?
This was an officially cleared, congressional trip, cleared on a bipartisan basis. Yes, like every other trip that, like the trip Kristi Noem took with her fashion show before CCOT, like the trip that 5 Republican members of the House took, like the day before when they went into CCOT. I can tell you, so that's, yes, it was an official trip.
Okay, so your response to her, and you understand her frustration and feeling like her daughter was a constituent of yours, met a horrible end. That family didn't hear from you, and understand their frustration, and that they see you extending so much time and energy over the Garcia case.
So what happened to the Morin family was awful and unacceptable. I cannot imagine losing a child like they lost Rachel. And I said at the time that my heart goes out to the Morin family. And I'm glad that the killer of Rachel Morin has been convicted in a court of law. That's how we hold guilty people accountable, in a court of law. Courts of law are also where people get their due process rights respected. As you indicated, there is zero connection between the horrible murder of Rachel Morin and the situation with Abrego Garcia. And I don't know if the Trump administration seems to be arguing that because of the awful thing that happened to Rachel Morin, that Abrego Garcia's right should be neglected.
I don't think that's not the question. I think it's about the mother being unable to understand why you would spend so much time and energy for this person who was not in your state or in the country legally, at which time she felt like you didn't have the same concern about her daughter and her family.
I did have concern. I have concern. My heart goes out to every Maryland family that is the victim of violence, regardless of the perpetrator. And that is why I am very glad, and said so, that a court of law has convicted her killer. That is where we litigate these issues. That is where the Trump administration admitted that they had wrongfully detained and deported Abrego Garcia. My whole point here is, if you deprive one man of his constitutional rights, you threaten the constitutional rights of everybody. I would hope that all of us would understand that principle. You're a lawyer. I'm not vouching for the individual. I'm vouching for his rights under the Constitution.
So just quickly then, if he is brought back, if the administration finally says, okay, we got a duty, let's get him back here, and he's given due process, then deported again, you're okay with that process?
I support the rule of law. That's exactly my point here. And if you threaten the rule of law for one person, you threaten it for everybody in America.
And in the latest turn of events, 4 more Democrats landed in El Salvador in support of Abrego Garcia. I want you guys to remember their names, you guys. Democrat Representatives Robert Garcia of California, Yasmin Ansari of Arizona, Maxwell Frost of Florida, and Maxine Dexter of Oregon traveled all the way to Central America country to demand the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, all probably on taxpayer dime. Yeah, I know, a lot to unpack on this, guys. But first, there's the issue of funding for Van Hollen's trip. So Senator Ted Cruz, he talked a bit about that in a recent podcast interview. He said that's one of the prerogatives of being in the Senate, is that you can travel internationally on official travel, and each senator can make a determination of where he or she wants to go. And it should be related to your responsibilities, related to your work, but particularly for someone like Van Hollen or Murphy. They both serve on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and so that in and of itself, it gives you a significant justification to travel abroad work-related. So can the Democrats travel to El Salvador if they want? And is that part reasonably of their work? Yes. But what they're doing is traveling there in order to highlight, we want to bring this illegal immigrant whom 2 courts have found as an MS-13 member back to America. That's astonishingly bad policy, and Cruz thinks astonishingly bad politics. A spokesperson for the Senate Foreign Relations Committee said that Committee Chair Senator Jim Risch did not approve Van Hollen's trip, but pointed out that some other committees and Senate leadership, including Democratic Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, have the power to approve foreign travel, so Van Hollen must have found another way. Now, seriously, what are these people doing out here? The knuckles don't lie. So, thanks to President Trump, these Dems, especially Van Hollen, they're looking real cray-cray right now. You know what I mean? Hey, by the way, guys, you've got to check out the Inner Circle. This is where our true supporters get exclusive access to content that I just can't share here, completely commercial free. It's also the best way to keep this channel going strong. So if you want to be a part of something special, join us over there. Links in the description or in the pinned comment down below. Just look at them. As a lot of these people have been pointing out online, the cross and skull could be cover-up tattoos designed to mask what they described as a 1 and a 3. Marijuana leaf equals M, smiley face equals S. So what does that spell? Oh, MS-13. Because according to an ICE source, a 13 tattoo would have been mandatory for Abrego Garcia if he became part of the notorious gang while living in the U.S. ICE agents also noted that Garcia was wearing a Chicago Bulls hat and a hoodie with rolls of money covering the eyes, ears, and mouth of the presidents on the separate denominations. They represent see no evil, hear no evil, and say no evil, which is, in this situation, it's indicative of the Hispanic gang culture according to the experts. That's why President Trump asserted that he was elected to take bad people out of the United States. Among other things, he must be allowed to do his job, make America great again. Oh, and about those margaritas, Van Hollen claimed the El Salvador government set up this photo op with Abrego Garcia by planting glasses of margarita cocktails in front of them when they met at Van Hollen's hotel. He said a Salvadorian official passed them the drinks to make it seem like the deported migrant was living in luxury rather than fearing for his life in a gang prison. But really what it sounds like to me is Van Hollen just can't handle the fact that Bukele made him look like an utter fool. Now, I don't even care what's on the table, honestly. The fact that a senator of our great country would spend taxpayer dollars to chase down an illegal wife-beating gang member is really what grinds my gears here, you know what I mean? But drop a quick yes in the comments down below, guys. Hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Guys, President Donald Trump called Van Hollen a grandstander for all of the posturing that he's doing for the alleged gangbanger. Then he proved just how unbelievably bad Abrego Garcia's record really was. To quote the president, "This is a violent person." 2 separate judges affirmed Abrego Garcia was a member of MS-13. When he was originally arrested in 2019, he was wearing a sweatshirt with rolls of money pouring out and an MS-13 symbol. He was driving with 2 other known members, and in 2022, Garcia was stopped by the Tennessee Highway Patrol and was found to be transporting 7 people from Texas to Maryland, and he had no driver's license. President Trump went on. He said in 2020 and 2021, Garcia's wife had filed for a protective order from him and said that he was violent and abusive and really scary, including allegations that he did all sorts of stuff to her. Not about to go into that on this video. But then he grabbed her arm, leaving some very severe marks. Garcia's wife also wrote in court at this point, I'm afraid to be close to him. I have multiple photos and videos of how he can be. So this is the man that Democrats are wanting us to fly back from El Salvador to be happily a part of the U.S. family again. I mean, this is just weird. It's a shame. The White House also issued a statement saying Chris Van Hollen has firmly established Democrats as the party whose top priority is the welfare of an illegal alien terrorist. It is truly disgusting. But President Trump will continue to stand on the side of the law-abiding Americans. And the American people have the president's back in return. I mean, even CNBC's own poll showed President Donald Trump has a net +7 approval on his policy of deporting illegal aliens. The president also has a net +12 approval on his handling of the southern border. Meanwhile, CNN cited a poll that found a whopping 56% of Americans support a mass deportation of all illegal aliens. In 2016, that number stood nearly 20% lower at 38%. You see, Democrats in the House and Senate are probably watching Senator Chris Van Hollen right now with a mix of admiration and jealousy. I mean, think about it. This guy catapults to national attention, becomes a darling of the progressive base, raises a ton of money, and somehow turns what should be a diplomatic nightmare into a taxpayer-funded tropical getaway. All thanks to his very public crusade to bring back Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a deported immigrant who's become the poster child of their latest push on immigration reform. You can almost hear the other Democrats thinking, damn, that could have been me. But see, guys, the polling suggests a lot of Americans are not convinced. To a lot of people, this guy isn't a wronged citizen. He's someone who should have never been in the country to begin with and certainly shouldn't be coming back. And yet, like political lemmings, a chunk of the Democratic Party is already hurling itself off the cliff to defend him. It's almost surreal. Van Hollen, he visits El Salvador to meet with Garcia, and boom, photo ops, they start popping up left and right, showing them having what looks to be drinks in some sunny cafe. Van Hollen is saying it was staged by Salvadorian officials. Still, the optics were terrible. And while he's spending damage control, opponents are asking why American taxpayer dollars are funding what looks like a political stunt in paradise. So while Van Hollen basks in the limelight and his party fumbles over how to respond, the real question remains, is this the hill that Democrats really want to die on? Because the more people learn about this case, the more it starts to look like a major misread of public sentiment and possibly a serious misstep heading into an election year. But what do you guys think? Drop a quick comment. Let me know what you guys think about this discussion today. Also, more in-depth discussions like this one coming up in our recommended videos. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. See you next time.